This was supposed to be the happiest time of my life. John and I had just welcomed our beautiful twin daughters into the world, and I was looking forward to settling into life as a mother. But little did I know that dark clouds were looming on the horizon. I naively thought our love was impervious to outside influences. Then I met her, Deborah, with her tales of female-led marriages and boundless freedom. Seduced by her intoxicating words, I made a mistake that would shatter our family forever. John's reaction was one of pure anger and betrayal. In the aftermath, I was left with no choice but to pick up the pieces of my life and learn from my errors. This is my story of how my entire world came crashing down in an instant, and the long road to winning back the heart of the man I had always loved. I hope that by sharing my experience, others can avoid a similar fate. This is my story, and my husband will tell it to you. Enjoy watching it unfold.
John. She thought she was being discreet, but little did she know I was aware of every detail through a colleague of hers who was shocked by the situation. While she plotted, I carefully planned. Luckily, I had enough time to calm my anger and prepare myself for the upcoming confrontation. The stage was set, and tonight, after dinner, everything would unfold. "Jen, so tonight is the night?" Deborah asked. "Yes, I am finally going through with it. I will wait until after dinner, bring him a beer, and then break the news," I confirmed. "Just remember to stand your ground. He won't take it well, but you have to be firm," Deborah reminded me. "I know. Just as we discussed, he doesn't have a choice. This is what's best for me, and if he truly cares, he'll understand," I reassured her. "Exactly. Prepare yourself for the shouting and resistance. He will resist, but eventually he will come around. Stay calm but assertive. Let him express his feelings, and he will realize you are serious," Deborah advised. "Right. And as far as he knows, it's only temporary. Once he adjusts, he will see the benefits. Then everything will fall into place. Are you sure about this?" John can be stubborn. I voiced my concern. "Janet, John loves you. Yes, he will be angry, but deep down he will do anything to make you happy, even if it means accepting this," Deborah assured me. "Okay, I will trust your judgment," I agreed. "Believe me, it took me 2 failed marriages to understand this, but with my current husband, he is completely compliant. Give it time, and John will also fall in line. You will have the security of your marriage and the freedom to explore," Deborah confidently revealed. After finishing the day, I returned home to prepare John's favorite dinner. When he arrived, his usual "I love you" and kiss on the cheek greeted me. Despite my efforts to appear composed, nerves still lingered. This marked a significant change in our marriage, yet I held on to the belief that it would all be worth it. Deborah had been discussing her experiences with a female-led marriage film for quite some time. Seeing how happy her husband was in that dynamic made me think that John could also find joy in it. Our dinner conversation flowed smoothly as we shared stories and talked about current events. It felt like any other evening meal. After dinner, I insisted that John relax with a beer while I handled the cleanup. He hesitated, wanting to help, but I assured him that I had everything under control. With leftovers put away and dishes in the dishwasher, the moment had come. Pouring myself a glass of wine, I mentally prepared for the upcoming conversation. I entered the living room ready to address the situation directly. "John, darling, we need to talk," I started, bracing myself for what was to come. "Of course, sweetheart, what's on your mind?" he responded gently. "Okay, John, I know this may be difficult to hear, but it's something I feel I have to do. Please understand that it's only temporary," I explained, hoping he would understand the seriousness of the situation. "Whatever it is, if it's important to you, I'm on board. Your happiness is everything to me," he replied, surprisingly calm. "Thank you for being so understanding. So, we've been discussing starting a family, and I'm almost ready for that. But before we do, there are a few things I need to address," I continued cautiously. "That's wonderful news, baby. What do you need to take care of?" he asked eagerly. Here it was, the moment of truth. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for his reaction. "Well, John, I need to explore some things before we fully settle down. It's just a temporary phase, and then I'll be fully committed to being the best wife and mother I can be," I confessed, hoping he wouldn't explode. That sounds reasonable, my love. But what exactly do you mean by exploring? He asked, surprising me with his calm demeanor. I couldn't believe how well he was taking it. This wasn't the explosive reaction I had expected. I intend to see other men for a while, but please know it's purely physical. You're the one I love. After a few months, I'll return to you and we can focus on building our family, I clarified, relieved that he wasn't reacting with anger. It appears you've already made your decision without my consent, Janet. While I want to make it clear that I don't approve of this, I understand that you are your own person. I won't obstruct your path if this is what you feel you must do, John calmly expressed, surprising me with his composed reply. Denver's insights were proving to be accurate. Perhaps John was more accepting than I had anticipated. So, Janet, how do you see this working out? Will one of us move out, or do you expect me to leave? Are you planning to bring your dates here, or will you be going to their places or hotels? John continued, maintaining a conversational tone. I assumed we would both continue living here. After all, we are still married, and as I mentioned earlier, our intimate life won't change. I might visit their places occasionally, but sometimes I'll bring them here as well. On those nights, you would stay in the spare bedroom. I don't see the need for a hotel when we have space here, I explained, trying to navigate the logistics calmly. I want to reiterate that I'm not in agreement with this. However, I must insist that I will not be intimate with you during this time. It's a matter of my own health. Since I won't know who these men are or what their backgrounds entail, I won't risk exposing myself to any potential STDs they might carry. Furthermore, once you're finished with this phase and decide to return to me, we will need to wait until you've been tested and cleared of any risks. You go and have fun and don't worry about me, John stated firmly, expressing his boundaries. Well, John, I can't say I'm not disappointed. I love you and our intimacy means a lot to me. But I understand your concerns. I accepted the situation, acknowledging his perspective with a tinge of sadness. So when do you plan on starting these flings? John asked, shifting the focus to practical matters. Deborah and I made plans to meet some colleagues at a club tomorrow night. I suggested that since we won't be intimate, maybe he should move into the spare room for a while. Don't worry, I'll be settled in the spare room by the time you get back tomorrow night, John replied calmly, returning to his newspaper. I was impressed by his mature handling of the situation. Despite his initial reservations, he remained accepting. It seemed Deborah's prediction was accurate. In a couple of months, he would likely be on board with my plan. As for the temporary rule of no intimacy, I knew it wouldn't last. Given some time, he would be back in our bed, unaware of my strategy. The next day, I excitedly shared the details with Deborah. John surprised me with his maturity, I told her. I knew he would come around, she responded optimistically. Do you think he'll watch tonight? She asked hopefully. I doubt it. He made it clear he wouldn't be intimate with me while I'm seeing someone else, I explained, respecting his boundaries. I'm sure it won't last long. Give him a week or two and he'll come back, she predicted confidently. Right after Deborah playfully suggested, I found the idea quite appealing. Since he declined to touch me, I took the initiative and had him relocate to the spare room. He's currently in the process of packing up. He assured me that he would have everything completely moved out of the mistress' bedroom by the time I return home tonight, I shared, finding the situation rather amusing. I really like that you've renamed it the mistress' bedroom. I might have to do the same, I replied. Deborah chuckled in agreement. Oh, absolutely. Well, I should start getting ready. I'll see you at the club, I stated, preparing to end the call. All right, goodbye for now, Deborah responded, and we ended the call, both looking forward to the evening's adventures. Later that night, John had made significant progress in boxing up my belongings from the bedroom. I questioned the need to box everything up when he could have easily carried armfuls of items down the hall. However, he explained that it would be more efficient for him to sort through belongings and discard unnecessary items directly into the boxes. While I understood the reasoning, I was preoccupied with getting ready and didn't pay much attention. He complimented me on how attractive I looked in my thong, garter belt, stockings, and 5-inch heels. There was no comment from him when I slipped into the little red cocktail dress I had purchased for our 5th anniversary last year. It had only been worn once before, but it still made me feel stunning. All right, John, I'm heading out. I'll probably be back around 1 in the morning, so there's no need for you to wait up. Besides, I might not be alone, I informed him as I grabbed my clutch, ready to leave. "Don't worry, sweetheart, I'll have everything moved out by then," he assured me, closing the last box as I left the house. A nagging feeling tugged at my mind, though I couldn't quite identify its source. I pushed it aside, choosing to focus on the excitement of the night ahead. I joined Deborah, Kurt, and Luis at the club. Kurt and Luis, both account managers at work, were undoubtedly attractive and, as per Deborah and a few other colleagues, well endowed. "So did John really move all the way into the spare bedroom?" Deborah asked as our first round of drinks arrived. "Yes, he finished packing everything up just before I left. He had promised me he would be completely moved out by the time I returned," I confirmed. "Is that what he said?" Louise added with a chuckle. "Yes, that's exactly what he said." "I'll be moved out by then," I replied, and we all had a good laugh. "I was hoping we could make the little cuck move over and do it on the bed right beside him," Kurt joked, causing more laughter. "Maybe once I've worked on him for a week or two." I giggled. "But first, why haven't either of you gentlemen asked me to dance yet?" We spent the next few hours dancing and drinking. I danced with both men multiple times, enjoying their company and the feeling of their hands on my waist. During the slower songs, we cuddled close, and their hands often found their way to my backside. Eventually, Deborah and I slipped away to the powder room to plan the end of the night. After a few rounds of rock, paper, scissors, I ended up taking Louis home while Deborah left with Kurt. The house was dark as I led Louis through the front door. John must have already gone to bed. That was fine. We didn't need an audience just yet. Leading Louis down the hallway and into my room, I noticed with satisfaction that John's belongings had been cleared out. Perhaps I should reward him with a little something tomorrow, like a hand job. It was definitely worth considering, but for now my focus was elsewhere. We wasted no time getting rid of our clothes, although Louis insisted I keep on the garter belt and stockings. My thong had disappeared hours ago, a playful keepsake taken by either Kurt or Louis. Not that it mattered. With John's financial support, replacing it was hardly a concern. Tonight promised to be scorching hot. After Louis departed to attend to his family, I slipped into my robe and made my way to the kitchen to prepare some coffee. I couldn't help but feel a slight pang of disappointment that John hadn't already taken care of it. It was already past 9 o'clock, after all. Normally, he would have been awake for an hour by now. I mentally noted to discuss this with him later. It seemed reasonable to expect him to have coffee and breakfast ready for me after a late night. Well, it looks like my plans for a gesture of gratitude in the form of a favor will have to be put on hold. I settled for a bagel as my breakfast before heading to the shower to freshen up. The warm water did wonders in soothing my tired muscles. With no immediate obligations for the day, I opted for a comfortable outfit, an old pair of shorts and a t-shirt. Since I would only be spending time with John, I grabbed a practical bra and a pair of regular panties. As I finished tying my hair into a ponytail, my phone began to ring. "Hey, Deborah," I greeted as I saw her name on the caller ID. "Hi there. So, spill the beans. How was Louis last night?" she eagerly inquired. "He was amazing. Everything I had hoped for. Although there's a slight hiccup. He declined my offer," I confessed, referring to John. "How did he react this morning?" Deborah shifted the conversation. "I'm not sure. I'm actually annoyed because he seems to be sleeping in. I was counting on him to have breakfast ready and coffee made by now," I grumbled. "Make sure you express your disappointment and clearly communicate your expectations. Assert yourself. But also remember to reward him for his efforts. That will motivate him to step up," Deborah wisely advised. "I'm starting to get frustrated that he's still not awake. Hold on a moment while I give him a wake-up call," I determinedly said. I walked down the hallway to the spare bedroom and knocked on the door, calling out John's name. No response. Trying again, I was met with silence once more. Finally, I turned the doorknob and swung the door open. Oh my goodness. I was taken aback in shock. Deborah's voice echoed through the phone as she asked, "What's happening?" I quickly responded, "John's not here. His clothes are gone from the closet," panic rising within me. As I sprinted through the house, I continued, "His truck's missing too, along with all his tools." The nagging feeling in the back of my mind began to solidify. "Oh no!" I gasped. Deborah pressed anxiously. "What? What's happening?" I realized, John moved out. Now it all makes sense. I misunderstood what he meant. He didn't say he was moving his stuff to the spare room. He said he was moving it out of my room. Then he mentioned being moved out before I got back. I thought he meant out of my room, but he meant out of the entire house. I need to call him and find out where he went, I exclaimed in realization. Deborah advised firmly, no, that's not the way to handle this. Contacting him now shows weakness. You need to stay strong. Let him come to you. Trust me, he's just throwing a tantrum. In a few days, he'll come crawling back. This is actually a good thing. Now you have the upper hand to punish him and make him beg to come back. It'll speed up the process. I wouldn't be surprised if you let Louise or Kurt knock you up and make Sean raise the kid. Feeling a bit uncertain, I asked, Are you sure about this? Deborah replied confidently, Absolutely. Just look at what my husband does for me. I conceded, Well, I have to admit you've been right about things so far. Deborah added casually, Oh, and Kurt wants to meet you in the storage room at work for an hour on Monday. Nervously, I questioned, Can we really get away with that? Deborah assured me, Of course. Half the girls are doing it. I handle all the scheduling. I'll email you the details. Just mark it as a meeting somewhere else. Don't worry, the boss never goes in there. And anyone who needs something from there knows to ask me first. After chatting a bit more, we ended the call. Despite my apprehension about John moving out, I couldn't deny my love for him and my desire to spend my life with him. Deborah had painted an alluring image of the Flinham, offering the freedom to explore other men while maintaining John's loyalty as a submissive husband. In the future, I could potentially discuss with John the possibility of ending his relationships with other men. If I decided to end those relationships, I could do so on my terms without his knowledge, possibly using pegging as a condition for his return. This was something I needed to consider. However, at the moment, I needed to recover from the previous night and prepare for what was sure to be a challenging day at work tomorrow. I chuckled at the unintentional innuendo, made a simple dinner, enjoyed a glass of wine, and went to bed. By Friday morning, I hadn't heard from John all week, which left me feeling uneasy. Deborah, on the other hand, remained optimistic, assuring me that his silence was not unexpected. She believed he would likely reach out soon. She also pointed out that the longer he stayed away, the more leverage I could gain for his eventual return. Throughout the week, I'd been meeting with Kurt, Louis, and a few other attractive men in the storage room. Today's agenda even included a scheduled double teaming with Kurt and Louis in the afternoon. During our break on Friday morning, Kurt, Louis, Deborah, and I were chatting by the coffee maker when we noticed an elegantly dressed woman approaching us. Janet Thompson, Deborah Allen, Louis White, and Kurt Anderson? She asked in a sweet southern drawl, confirming our identities. She handed each of us an envelope and quickly took a photo with a small digital camera. Y'all have been served, she announced before walking towards our boss's office. What is this about? I called out to her as she left. Honey, I'm just here to deliver them, not to read them, she replied over her shoulder before entering our boss's office without knocking. She emerged less than a minute later. As she exited the building, she bid us farewell with a pleasant tone, although a sense of unease lingered within her. Simultaneously, we all opened our envelopes, only to be met with the shocking revelation of divorce petitions. Panic washed over me as I read the reason stated. Adultery. Stunned, I looked up to find Louise and Kurt sharing the same expression of disbelief. In a hushed tone, they whispered, "Oh, damn," just as their cell phones began to ring. The situation quickly escalated as their wives called, armed with evidence of their infidelity. Within moments, their belongings were being unceremoniously thrown out of the front door, leaving them in need of new accommodations. The impending divorce papers loomed ominously over them. Suddenly, a voice erupted from our boss's office, prompting him to storm out and confront us. Filled with fury, he shouted our names for all to hear. Thompson, Allen, White, Anderson, get in here immediately. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach as we obediently filed past him into his office, the door slamming shut behind us. The situation was far worse than we had imagined. Would any of you imbeciles care to explain this to me? Our boss demanded, waving the manila envelope in front of us. None of us dared to speak up. Fine, I'll enlighten you fools. It appears that the company is being sued for failing to uphold the moral code outlined in our employee handbook. Any guesses as to why? Once again, silence filled the room. Allow me to clarify. We're being sued because Mrs. Thompson couldn't keep her legs closed. Mr. Anderson and Mr. White couldn't control their urges, and Mrs. Allen turned our warehouse into a brothel. Can any of you assure me that these claims are baseless? Can any of you confirm that these incidents didn't occur on company time or property? Anyone? The room remained silent, and our boss expressed his disbelief. Unbelievable. What on earth were you imbeciles thinking? And to make matters worse, we are unable to terminate your employment until the situation is resolved due to the court order issued by Dan. Please leave my office while I determine the appropriate course of action. With our heads bowed, we exited the office and returned to our respective workstations. It was challenging to concentrate after that bombshell. Thankfully, I still had a job. I decided to examine the divorce petition to assess the extent of the damage, which turned out to be worse than I had anticipated. The evidence included photos, videos, audio recordings, and notarized letters. An hour later, a company-wide email was sent by the boss to all employees. Management has been made aware of multiple instances where employees have planned, scheduled, and participated in activities that directly violate the moral code of conduct outlined in the employee handbook. What is even more troubling is that these actions occurred during working hours and on company premises. Due to the possibility that this issue may be more widespread than initially thought, immediate and drastic action is necessary. Identifying the individuals involved has proven to be a challenge. Therefore, the following measures will be put in place. 1. All employees must carefully review the moral code outlined in the employee manual. An online course will be developed by the IT department over the weekend to ensure understanding and compliance. Each employee must successfully complete this course by next Friday. 2. Security will conduct random checks of all secluded areas multiple times throughout the day until permanent security cameras are installed to monitor these locations. 3. Access to the storeroom will be restricted effective immediately with the key held by the head of security. Any necessary supplies must be obtained with a security escort. 4. Computer usage will be closely monitored to prevent personal activities on company assets. Prohibited activities include arranging meetings unrelated to work, utilizing personal email accounts, accessing websites unrelated to work, and engaging in text messaging unrelated to work. Additionally, socializing with colleagues should be limited to the break room during designated breaks and lunchtimes. Security officers will be present to enforce this policy. As per company policy, the identities of those responsible for these actions will remain undisclosed. We trust that this information will not be necessary. Thank you for your attention to these matters. Management. 2 minutes later, my email inbox was flooded with hate mail from unhappy coworkers. After work, I joined the other 3 at the bar across the street. We managed to find a small table in the corner amidst several other colleagues enjoying Friday happy hour. Their unfriendly glares towards us were far from inviting. Well, at least we still have our jobs. For now, anyway. It was almost considerate of him, don't you think? But why do you think John included that provision in the court order, I wondered aloud. Lewis scoffed in response. Oh, come on. It's pretty obvious he wasn't trying to spare your feelings. He did it to cause more pain. What do you mean? I asked, a mix of curiosity and apprehension in my voice. Alimony? It might not even matter because he's citing adultery, but this is just insurance against that, Lewis explained. If you're employed and earning, a judge probably won't order alimony. But if you were to lose your job and struggle to find another, a sympathetic judge might grant financial support until you're back on your feet. So you hold on to your job until the divorce is finalized. Once that's done, and a settlement with our company is reached, we could all find ourselves unemployed without alimony. This wasn't about helping you. It was about protecting himself. I'll just resign on Monday then, I declared, trying to take control of the situation. Good grief. You're truly a natural blonde, aren't you? Kurt remarked. What do you mean? I inquired, feeling somewhat defensive. Resigning is essentially like waving a red flag to the judge, Lewis explained somberly. If you leave your job after receiving divorce papers, it will appear as though you are attempting to manipulate the situation to receive alimony. Believe me, the judge will not accept any other explanation. You will be viewed as someone trying to exploit the system. Your best option is to hold onto that job tightly and save every penny you can. It will be even more difficult for Luis and me, Kurt added. Our wives will likely be granted alimony and child support considering our children are involved. Just imagine the chaos if we suddenly lose our jobs and cannot find anything close to the same income level. Alimony and child support payments are determined based on our current incomes at the time of divorce. Damn, I muttered, feeling the gravity of the situation sinking in. This whole concept of a female-led marriage didn't sound as appealing anymore. I realized I needed to have a serious conversation with John and resolve things. As much as I wanted to support my friends, losing my marriage was not an option. What was I even thinking? Forget about my friends. If throwing them under the bus could save my marriage, then let the tossing begin. I quickly retrieved my phone, prepared to make the call. "We're sorry, but the number you have dialed is not accepting calls from this number." "Damn, Deborah, lend me your phone." "Why?" "Because John blocked my number. I need to speak with him and sort out this mess." She handed me her phone as my 3 companions gazed at me skeptically. "We're sorry, but the number you have dialed is not accepting calls from this number." "Damn, he blocked yours as well. Try Kurt or Lewis." "That's not a good idea. I'm trying to resolve things here." "What do you think he will do if he discovers that the first call I make to him is from the phone of one of my lovers?" Yes, I know you probably think I'm foolish. At this point, I can't even argue against that, especially after what occurred at the office today. I can only say that I had a major wake-up call. I found myself in a state of complete panic. How does one go about finding a husband who is intentionally avoiding you on a Friday evening? It was pointless to stake out his workplace since it was closed and he didn't work weekends. With our cell phones blocked and most likely our home and work phones as well, direct communication was out of the question. Meeting face-to-face seemed like the only option. I had to locate him and confront him directly, disregarding my pride and the state of other women's marriages. All I wanted at that moment was to reconcile with my husband. As I scrolled through my contacts, I hoped that one of his friends might have some information. Unfortunately, none of our mutual friends seemed to know anything. Well, that's not entirely accurate. The ones who still spoke to me had no clue, but the ones who now despised me had all the information. However, they were not willing to assist me. Instead, they mocked my pleas for help and refused to pass on any messages. It was a humiliating experience. After my unsuccessful attempt to reach John, I hung up the phone and sank deeper into my seat, nursing my 4th drink. Just then, Louis chimed in with what he probably believed was a brilliant idea. "Well," he began, "since our lives have already gone to waste anyway, why don't we go to Janet's and spend the entire night as a foursome?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Did he genuinely think that was a good idea? Perhaps it was to him. However, after the reality check I had just received, I couldn't entertain the thought. Despite feeling like everything was falling apart, I still clung to a tiny sliver of hope that John and I could salvage our relationship. That hope would vanish instantly if I gave in to Lewis's suggestion. Politely declining, I proposed that Deborah take them home with her. I had a husband to try to win back, and I wasn't about to jeopardize that opportunity. Over the weekend, I exhausted every possible avenue to locate John, from scouring motel parking lots for his truck to driving by his friends' homes. At various times, I left no stone unturned. I attempted to follow his best friend in hopes of finding John, but my efforts were in vain. On Monday morning, I positioned myself across the street from his workplace, eagerly anticipating his arrival. However, as the morning progressed, John never appeared. Disheartened, I waited for another hour, but he still didn't show up. By then, I was already late for my own job, but I was unconcerned. The impending settlement put my job at risk. Despite this, I entered the office and approached the receptionist, seeking information on John's whereabouts. Unfortunately, I discovered he was on leave for the next 2 weeks. Ignoring the boss's disapproving look, I entered the office, 2 hours late. At this point, I had exhausted all traditional methods of contacting John. Phones were either blocked or risky to use, his friends were unhelpful, and I couldn't leave a message for him at his workplace. Showing up unannounced at his house wasn't an option, and I didn't have his address for mail. As I settled at my desk, a glimmer of hope emerged. Email. John always checked his emails diligently. With nothing to lose, I decided to give it a try, hoping he hadn't blocked my emails. It was worth a shot, John. I won't make excuses, as it would be a waste of time. I must confess I seem to have acted foolishly. It's not Deborah's fault. I made a misguided decision on my own. However, the idea of a female-led marriage that she talked about seemed tempting at the time. Deep down, I knew you wouldn't entertain such a notion. It took a wake-up call for me to realize my mistake. I am now fully aware, deeply embarrassed, and sincerely sorry for my actions. I understand if you can't forgive me right away. John, despite my recent behavior, my love for you remains steadfast. Please don't blame yourself. This was entirely my fault, stemming from my own foolishness and selfishness. My dearest John, I humbly come before you, fully aware of the undeserving nature of my plea. I beg for your forgiveness, knowing that I have deeply hurt you. I am pleading for another chance, willing to do whatever it takes to regain your trust. I now realize the foolishness of my actions in pursuing Felon M, and I am eager to embrace a future with you, filled with love and commitment. John, I offer myself completely to you, ready to fulfill your every command. I understand the weight of the word anything. Please know that I am laying everything on the line for you, as it was a condition for my return to your side. I have already undergone S&D testing, and the results will be available in a few days. Kindly let me know where to send them, and I will ensure that you receive them promptly. John, I want you to know that I consider you the most remarkable man I have ever known. I trust that you would never intentionally harm me, even though I may have given you reason to. I acknowledge my mistakes and take full responsibility for my actions. I am not asking you to forget or trust me again immediately. All I ask for is the opportunity to be yours in whatever capacity you desire. My only desire is to reunite with you, even if it means accepting the end of our marriage. I hope it doesn't come to that, but I understand that the decision is not mine to make. I am prepared to face the consequences of my actions and accept any punishment you deem appropriate. Regarding Deborah, Kurt Lewis, and the lawsuit against my company, I must confess that Deborah manipulated me into participating in this scheme, and Lewis and Kurt took advantage of the situation. As you are aware, I will be terminated once the lawsuit concludes. We are all responsible for our actions, and I trust you to handle them as you see fit. If you desire, I am even willing to assist in resolving the situation. From this moment forward, I willingly submit myself to you as your devoted servant, Janet. Epilogue. Fortunately, John had not yet blocked my email, and to my surprise, he actually read my message. Of course, he still harbored doubts about the sincerity of my words. After all, I had already broken the most sacred vow I had ever made, the one to forsake all others. It was only natural for him to question my commitment to any other promises. I could only demonstrate my sincerity to him through consistent actions over time. It has been 2 years since I sent that email. Lewis and Kurt found themselves deeply involved in the turmoil of their divorces. After the settlement of the lawsuit against the company, all 4 of us were immediately dismissed from our jobs. Lewis and Kurt eventually secured new employment, although with significantly lower wages. They were forced to move to a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in one of the city's least desirable neighborhoods. Struggling to make ends meet, their social lives dwindled to almost non-existent. Their ex-wives took advantage of the situation to alienate their children from them. I've heard that both women have since found themselves in happier relationships. As for myself, John agreed to my proposition of becoming his submissive. Yes, John wanted to test my commitment to see if I would keep my promise if I wanted to reconcile with him. I had no choice. It was a challenging 6 months, but eventually he became more lenient. Now he only brings other women home once every couple of months. After losing my job, I stopped working altogether. John received a promotion and now earns enough for us to live comfortably. Without my income, I mainly stay at home, taking care of our 2-year-old twins and managing the household. Most of the time I am unclothed, although John recently mentioned that I will need to start wearing clothes at home soon as the kids are getting older, and it might become awkward otherwise. However, for now, I only dress when leaving the house or when we have guests over. I still answer the door naked for deliveries. As for Deborah, well, she is still married. Yes, she was also fired from her job, but nobody really expected any significant consequences for her. She had her husband completely under her control. She will simply find another job and life will continue as usual for her. Oh well, life isn't always fair. Yeah, true. It transpired that Marcus was not the submissive pushover everyone believed him to be. Upon gathering all the evidence, he was filled with rage. I thought I had a challenging 6 months, but compared to hers, mine was a breeze. Once he felt she had been adequately punished, he handed her divorce papers. While he was subjecting Deborah to torment, he was secretly liquidating all their assets and protecting them. He gave her the house after refinancing and claiming all the equity, then disappeared. She lost the house and all the money vanished. Despite managing to secure another job, it paid only half of what she had been earning before. Furthermore, she developed a tarnished reputation. She still goes on dates, but the men are only interested in one thing: getting into her pants. She is currently not dating, as she still has another month of antibiotics to complete. You may be wondering why I tolerate this situation, or perhaps you find it amusing that I am facing the consequences I deserve. If you are upset because John did not abandon me, I thank God every day for his mercy, even though I know I deserved otherwise. I endure because I simply cannot imagine life without the love of my life by my side. Yes, John inflicts punishment and degradation upon me, but he still loves me. I have the freedom to leave whenever I choose, and John has assured me of fair treatment in case of a divorce. However, I declined his offer. He is an exceptional father, partner, and spouse, and I desire nothing more. I became so fixated on the idea of a female-led marriage that I lost sight of what truly matters. Instead of finding fulfillment in an equal partnership, I have embraced a submissive role to my husband. It was not the path I had envisioned, but I find contentment in it. Thank you for watching this video until the end. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.